Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Head for the Hills. Our founder, Sherry Levine, is here. Hi, Sherry. Um, our readers are Lana Hetchman Ayers and C.W. Emerson, and they're here as well from different parts of the world. So we've got people as far away as Florida here, Connecticut, and Mexico. So welcome, everybody. And we decided that Lana would read first because she's having a storm and she's kind of trepidatious that her electricity will go out. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but she will read first. And I'll start with her bio. Lana Hetchman Ayers shepherded over 100 poetry volumes into print in her role as managing editor for 3 small presses. Her work appears in Escape into Life, Rattle, The London Reader, Peregrine, The MacGuffin, and other journals. A National Book Award nominee, she won honors in the Discovery, The Nation, and Rita Dove Poetry Awards. Her most recent poetry collections are When All Else Fails, The Poetry Box, and Overtures, Kelsey Books. Her 9th and most recent full-length collection, The Autobiography of Rain, is from Fernwood Press. Welcome, Lana. Oh, and please, everybody who's not speaking, mute yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dale, for hosting me, and to all of you for being here. It's really special to be in a community of writers and artists and people that appreciate poetry, especially at this time. And it's an honor to read with the incomparable C.W. Emerson. In difficult times, I think we owe it to ourselves to treat ourselves with kindness and tenderness, especially, which seems in short supply in our environment here in the US right now. But even the smallest things can help. In addition to reading a lot of poetry, which I always do, what I'm doing right now to kind of buoy myself at this time is rereading books of poems that have meant a great deal to me, which include some of Neruda's poetry, Emily Dickinson, and Patricia Fargnoli, who I'll say a little more about later, who was a mentor of mine. And the continued presence of those poets and those words that live on is really a help to me. The first poem that I'm going to read from my book, if I can find it here, I think I've printed it out. Maybe I haven't. I might not have. Let's see. I can read it directly from the book. Is a short poem, which is called Elegy for Tenderness. And it kind of relates to what we're experiencing now. Elegy for Tenderness. Uncapturable in the past, as grasping at wind. Though now, if I draw my eyes up to breathe sky, a graceful arc of wings can stand in for tenderness. Or encountering across the grocery aisle a stranger's smile. On a misty eve, the waning moon, butterfly pinned to celestial velvet, sighs with me. The world's crowded some places, empty others. All of us alone in our skins. Any lit wick that brightens without burn suffices. I've discovered, though, as much as I am a devotee of the written word, that sometimes it's not what we say that matters and brings comfort to others, but how we listen. And this poem is based on experiences that I had. And the title comes from the poet Tom Hunley. It's called In the Distance, People Are Making Even More Distance. Years ago, I volunteered weekend overnights at the suicide hotline. Every time the phone rang, which it did at regular intervals, especially Saturday, my cheeks flushed with heat. I answered, asked for a name, said, "How can I help?" and little else. Then I listened more to the sounds between words than the words themselves, all sorrows being equal. Some callers breathed rapidly, as if caught mid-run. Others sighed deeply, long exhalations, as if internal drought raised a cloud of dust. Many callers cried, siren wails, hiccuping sobs, moaning, punctuated by a hysterical note of laughter. Each sound a unique song of pain. Whatever the melody or key, I attempted to harmonize my breath with theirs. More than any shallow syllables of words, I believe this is what saved them for an hour or an evening or maybe a lifetime. Testimony rising from my chest, the best way to say, I'm in this with you, your ready, steady twin. Suicidal ideation is a lonely night train whistle, isn't it? Pining for that unattainable distance, not only from the world, but from oneself. I've wanted to board that locomotive so many times. Imagine landscapes rolling by, reflections in the night quiet windows, my face alone. Now I watch the days move through shadow to light to shadow. Nights I lie awake, trapped in the middle distance, and ponder how deftly the moon negotiates its closeness to our dreams. Years ago, I wrote, believe it or not, a 464-page time travel romantic adventure novel called Time Flash, Another Me. I realized after I had written it that I wrote the entire book because I wanted to save two people's lives, that it would always be too late to save. Even with the rules of time travel I created for the book. Those people were John Lennon and my brother Alan. But somehow, daring to put that wish in writing felt cathartic and healing. Sometimes we have to commit our impossible desires to art. I believe art makes all things more possible. And this next poem arose out of that ilk, part wishful thinking and part a dream that I had. And it stems from when I was a teenager. I had a summer job answering phones for an interior design company that Yoko Ono was using for their apartment. I never got to see the place in person or meet either of them, but I did see photos of the interior. And this poem is called Imagine. Imagine John Lennon speaking softly, the way one might be to persuade a gunman not to shoot. Whispering words you cannot make out in your dream of Lennon, cross-legged on the immaculate white sofa in his famous Dakota penthouse. His round eyeglasses reflecting infinities in the glass coffee table. Lennon cooing syllables sweet as corn feed to the crowd of columbidae in his living room. Yes, rock pigeons everywhere. Their smooth green heads, their black moon eyes, iridescent necks nodding as they prance toward Lennon. Such is his anima connection with these much maligned sacred beings. Pink feet lifting in rhythmic dance, a trance, a prayer, a karmic call for all creatures to let be. While outside the throne open balcony doors, the Hudson River's waters shiver. And just imagine 7 stories down below on the West 72nd Manhattan sidewalk, peace enters a troubled soul. And this next poem is dedicated to CL, who's here tonight. Thank you, CL. And it's about how things are never really truly dark, even though it may seem so. And the poem is called Second Light. Last night, after I turned on one lamp too many, the breaker tripped and all the lights extinguished. I noticed that even in the dark, I could see the shapes of things. Outline of the door frame, straight edge of the upper cabinet, curve of the countertop, person-like outline of my desk chair. It was as if in the dark there was a second light, a brightness within shadow that goes unnoticed. So preoccupied are we with harsh illumination, we forget the world is not all duality, not all good and bad, not all right or wrong, not this or that, but shades of meaning and profundity. I walk to my chair, not tripping over the edge of the rug, not bumping into the protruding washer dryer, and sat in my seat breathing in the dark, my heart a soft metronome. I could make out the messy scatter of white pages on the surface of the desk, piles of books, the nested rectangles of my laptop and its stand, its screen darker than the air in the room. And though I knew I couldn't read any of the pages, I moved my palm over the surface of printouts that emitted a kind of glow, felt their smoothness, their coolness, knowing words were the darker shade of light. Sitting with the mystery of that, I took the top poetry book off the stack, felt its weight in my hand, wondering if it was the Fagnoli or the Machado, and understood that words on paper all weigh the same, no matter what meaning they impart. We make such significance out of opposites. Past laws impugn one another, but between hope and despair, there is more light in the darkness than we ever knew. A deeper seeing, a way to breathe from the soul all the way into the eyes. The next few poems are about writing. For many of us, it is difficult to make meaning now. So it may be helpful to remind ourselves why we write, why we make art, why we're part of the communities we're part of. So this poem is called Why I Write. The person-sized dog who sleeps between my husband and me each night can no longer jump up onto the bed on her own. She tries and fails. So I leap out behind her in the dark to catch her back legs and propel them up in the moment her front make the attempt. I write because I don't know whether this is a mercy. I write because the autumn air smells of leaf rot and cinnamon today, and the aroma of my husband's coffee that I am doctor forbidden to drink causes a longing in me that croaks like a horny spring toad. I write because my father had overcast sky eyes and a nose broken too many times. I write because the only time my brother told me he loved me was the day before leukemia claimed his life at age 53. I write because the rain needs an advocate, because we still kill brown skin. A flutist once said, there's a tenuous balance between covering and uncovering the holes to create beauty in music. I write because the moon uses time like its personal chauffeur, because the night's a cracked mirror in which my face is absent. I write because the white moth that alights on the window above my desk displays papery wings that are pathways to other realms. Because the cinema of daylight releases a new blockbuster every hour. I write because my cat's paws tap secret Morse code messages across the wooden floors. because I have my grandmother's hands, her clumsy thumbs, and there's ink in my pen, pages like unspoiled fields begging for the boot prints of words. I write because a woman's womb is not inventory, because hope is not a sold out event, because heartbreak is as common as birdsong, but as complex as frost patterns in the woods on a new moon eve. I write because my mother was an alphabet of pain. I write because the storm battering the roof patters more softly than the regrets that echo in the canyon of my memories. I write out of love. I'm going to read two last poems. This new collection, The Autobiography of Rain, is dedicated to the poet Patricia Fargnoli, who was a poetry mentor who became my biggest cheerleader and dear friend. Without her belief in me, none of my books would exist. As practitioners of the arts, we need to lift one another up as best we can, especially now. It isn't easy being a poet, yet that's what we do because we must. And it means we have to let the world in and write our truths about it. This poem is called Strong Verbs in memory of Patricia Fargnoli. All through the night she left us, the stars failed to take notice, went on twinkling. I lay in the lawn chair in the yard, wondering if life after life is possible, whether the existence of a soul is just a fairy tale we tell ourselves to avoid despair. The moon pushed across the arc of horizon, softer than a shout, lonely, misunderstood. What if death is a kind of homelessness, away from one's body, and what comes after death is dampness, cold, hunger, and fear? I haven't forgotten what it felt like to love her, how my breath flowed deeper into my solar plexus when she spoke about poetry, said, poetry pounds its invisible hammer, erects more visible beauty in the world, nails gratitude into our hearts. Sometimes I want to run away from my life without her in it. Sometimes I want to testify on behalf of all her poems, recite roofmen until it calcifies into your bones. The stars emit their remarkable shine over us freely. But for a poet to bestow such radiance requires sacrifice, requires allowing the world to pierce with arrows so that the light of sorrow shimmers through every wound. The final poem I'm going to read is actually a poem by Patricia Fargnoli from her award-winning collection Necessary Light, chosen by Mary Oliver for the May Sarton Award. It was her first book of poems that was published when she was in her 60s. And it's still available for purchase brand new today. And it's over 20 years old. So that's kind of a remarkable book and a remarkable achievement. And I'm going to read Roofmen to you. I believe it's a poem that embraces everyone in our living conditions, in our sorrows, and it says that each of us matter and need to continue on. So this is Roofmen by Patricia Fargnoli. Over my head, the roofmen are banging shingles into place, and over them the sky shines with a light that is almost past autumn and bright as copper foil. In the end, I will have something to show for their hard labor. Unflappable shingles, dry ceilings, one more measure of things held safely in a world where safety is impossible. In another state, a friend tries to keep on living, though his arteries are clogged, though the operation left a 10-inch scar, and near his intestines, an aneurysm blossoms like a deformed flower. His knees and feet burn with constant pain. We go on. I don't know how sometimes. For a living, I listen 8 hours a day to the voices of the anxious and the sad. I watch their beautiful faces for some sign that life is more than disaster. It is always there, the spirit behind the suffering, the small light that gathers the soul and holds it beyond the sacrifices of the body. Necessary light. I bend toward it and blow gently. And those hammerers above me bend in the dailiness of their labor, beneath concentric circles, a roof of sky, beneath the roof of the universe, beneath what vaults over it. And don't those journeymen hold a piece of the answer? The way they go on, laying one gray speckled square after another, nailing each down firmly, securely. Thank you so much for your time and attention and the sacred space you've all created here tonight. It's an honor to have read for you.
Thank you so much, Lana. What a wonderful reading. You've got a bunch of wonderful notes in their chat. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. What a fabulous reading. And thank you for introducing us to Patricia Fargnoli. I'm going to go get the book. Thank you. I'd love to make sure that everybody knows about our readers' books, and hopefully you go and purchase them. I've put in the link C.W. Emerson's book. I'll put it in there again. It's called Danger Face, his most recent book, and you can pre-order it. I'm putting it in the chat right now. There it is in the chat. Welcome, C.W. Emerson. C.W. has received numerous international honors, including as winner of 2 prizes from Poetry International, the C.P. Cavalry Poetry Prize, and co-winner of the 2023-24 Summer Chapbook Competition. Emerson's poetry and literary criticism have appeared in books and journals, including Harvard Review, Oxford University Press, Greensboro Review, Tupelo Quarterly, and others. He is the author of a chapbook of Coldwater Canyon, The Poetry Box, and the prize-winning portfolio, The Thoracic Diaries, forthcoming in Poetry International. Welcome, CW.
Dale, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Lana, for suggesting that we read together tonight. It's always an honor to be a part of any poetry event or interview or discussion with you. You're so accomplished, and those poems are beautiful. Thank you for the Patricia poem, particularly at the end. What a beautiful bookend. I'm going to start by reading a fairly recent poem of mine that's in this book. It's called My Education. It gives you a little bit of an overview of the terrible, wonderful places I came from and I'm still going. My education. I was educated for a life at racetracks, country auctions, nickel-ante poker games, how to elicit small-town gossip over one's lascivious nature and acts. I never learned the names of farm machines my father sold at auction, wouldn't know a combine from a thresher, or for that matter, a Holstein from a Guernsey. But put me on the backstretch of an oval track. I'll show you what separates trotters from pacers, cheap claimers from the imagined equine elite that never raced at Finger Lakes. And only at a small town track outside of Canandaigua would I have ever been hired at 17 by the daily racing form as call taker. Taking down the trackman's call of the race, then constructing presumed positions of each horse throughout. A highly speculative endeavor, not unlike fantasy football, I'm told. I ran bets for my boss, made a killing when I bet the same. On days when the track was dark, I'd jog my father's horses, cool them down at the horse barn he'd built out behind the auction house on the Chapin Road. The sweat of the horses seeping deep into woolen blankets of red, black, and silver plaid, racing colors of the Emerson clan. On Friday nights, in the back of Macri's grocery in Delhi, my mother, Jimmy Macri, his sister Rosalie, Sue Ellen Quayle, and others gathered for their weekly poker game, with old man Macri looking on. He always called my mother by her maiden name. Miss Locke became Miss Salaka, and she was 20 again. There, on the Macri's plush upholstered couch, I needed toothpicks to stay awake for Dracula's Daughter, Fall of the House of Usher, or some other terrifying late-night delight. Around that time, I also learned that cars were not mere vehicles, but also icons of free spending, markers of independence, potential sites of marital strife. The day Eileen drove home from Kerner Ford in a new candy apple red Mustang convertible, my father said, "Christ, Eileen, do you think we're made of money?" But I wasn't there to hear it. Wasn't here, wasn't there, wasn't anywhere, except lost in Bracken's World, a TV show about backstage Hollywood, the place I truly belonged, directing from behind the camera. Or, if I grew to be handsome enough, being artfully lit by my boyfriend, the director of photography. I watched the show religiously, alone in my room on an old black and white, and envisioned my glamorous future life, where in each week's teaser, at the end of every episode, my true parentage would be revealed. For having concealed nothing of my nascent gay persona, my father had disowned me. Eileen sent care packages to my tiny basement garden apartment in frigid St. Paul, not far from campus. I continued to dream of the life I'd have, golden tan, blonde hair feathering back in the balmy Malibu breeze. And now, as I step outside my manufactured desert home, the dust-dry air gathers into a haboob, a storm lifting up over the San Jacintos. I roll up the windows of my 2003 Buick Rendezvous and hunker down, out of danger, out of sight, waiting for the storm to come, to settle, and finally to pass. This poem is from my chapbook Off Coldwater Canyon, which was published by the Poetry Box up in your neck of the woods. It's about a time in my life as a young man when a new pandemic was sweeping through. We didn't know what to do, but uh, I think the images in the poem and what it stands for can be relevant for many different situations, many different times. And it's called The Impossible Time. I was falling in love with the world, and everything in the world was dying. There was no end to what threatened us. I sheltered under leaves in the dark humus. I waited for it to be over, but it was never over. There would be no future, so we made no plans. Still, the air had a sweetness and tang. We were young, the lines of our bodies light and live, the night air filled with valley jasmine, with smoke from deep in the Tenderloin, with traces of champagne wafting over Brooklyn's snow-clad streets. That winter, our breath misted the windows of my old Chevy, your new coupe. I was in love with the thought of you, but you were already gone. The leaves and the bodies kept falling around me. I tracked the snowpack as it melted, focused my gaze on the ground below. Or did it happen in another way entirely? In a time of such impossibilities, what exactly is the truth? A narrator soaked in hard-scrabbled gin, a bulletproof screen that kicks our bullets back at us. It happened in broken nights, littered with fever and sweat-soaked sheets that signaled our imminent demise. There was no escaping death's widening presence, but even so, we would not die. For years, I floated above the carnage, then finally rejoined the herd of the living, cleaned out closets, made arrangements, moved through the necessary days. The faces and place names bent and merged into something that felt like safety. I shadowed the plague from seaboard to seaboard, marched up Fifth Avenue flanked by stars and suffragettes, slunk down Sunset Boulevard with wreckage like me from the streets and alleys. One morning, I woke to a clear sky flocked with white, a dusting of feathers over the Hudson Valley. I prayed that something of our kind would find its way into time's pleats and waves, our grace and beauty, the way we defied expectations of weakness, that despite our decimation, we would endure. This was how life came back to me afterward. The way light filters through bamboo shades, insinuates itself, then disperses the night. The planets in their new configurations, a subtle shifting of the elements. Time, its planes like sheets of glass, sharp, translucent, slicing the air. Lana and I have been having a lot of conversations lately, and a lot of them are on my website. Two conversations where we sat down to talk for 15 minutes and ended up for 45. So if you're interested in hearing about how we think about poetry, please check that out. We talked about love poems, and for me, I wouldn't call it a difficulty in writing love poems. I've written some, plenty, but they're not the first place I go, and they tend to be short. This is a poem that's called 2G, late November, 6 weeks married. You've asked me to tell you what I want for the world, for myself, and for us. I want to be the wound and the linen that binds it, the medicine that heals it, the earth and the sky. So come to bed. It's late. and we're married now. Names changed to protect the innocent, initials only. I did kind of end up in Hollywood, but not in the way I had sort of imagined. And long before I knew what the meaning of the word ekphrastic was or how to pronounce it, I was in Rome, Italy, with a camera in my hand, and emerged with a photograph I took, and later wrote a poem. The title tells you what it is, and it's just a little slice of life that I never expected to find myself in. The poem's called On a Photograph of Doris Brinner, Valentino Garavani, and Elizabeth Taylor. There's Doris Brinner, Yule's second wife, vamp-eyed, Roman-nosed, my European guide, and Mr. Valentino, all teeth and brilliantine, the two captured in profile. Elizabeth, seated between them, an elegant turn to the camera. Who knew better the mechanics of posing? Still beautiful, luminous, and Valentino lace. I was probably thinking by the time the shutter snapped, Dove la macchina, where's the car? My only real Italian. I planned our escape from the gala through a back kitchen door. The Italian press, relentless, vulturous, entranced by mysterium tremendum. Queen Elizabeth, numinous, tracking the room with a razor-sharp eye. Fiercely committed to here and now, scarcely a nod to the past. For what good comes from enshrining loss? A plane crash, a suicide, a young god left, smashed and bloody at the end of an endless road. Track her, adore her, set her free, but call her by her given name, Elizabeth, or Bess, even Bessie May, but never call her Liz. Liz was a name invented by the press. It was the name of one of the housemaids. Only outsiders spoke it. Something went wrong in our flight arrangements. Booked into Rome on Alitalia, a flight with no first class. So every time Madame needed the loo, she'd make her way back through economy, through clouds of cigarillo smoke, cat calls, chants of La Liz, La Liz. When she returned, she glared at me through narrowed violet eyes, her silence a sufficiently strong corrective. You never know what path you're going to come upon in your life and take it. I said yes. The next poem I want to read is a newish poem. It's from the book Danger Face also, and I borrow the first line of the poem from Louise Glick, and the notion of one of my favorite Louise Glick poems, and this is called Returning to Averno. You die when your spirit dies. You might stand up from a cafe table, shift your weight onto a weakened hip, and crumble like a scone, tumbling down a flight of stairs. I remember the days before my body betrayed me, stepping smartly along Lexington on my way to some meeting or event, blithely bypassing others on the street, so keen on my own self-importance. I had plans, big ideas. Nothing seemed too far-fetched or out of reach, so great was my certitude, my sense of purpose. It was, to be sure, the arrogance of youth, but essential to the tasks which lay before me. The decimation. I don't know how to tell you that. I don't know whether you need to know, or if you can even empathize. I wanted to run out into the street, scream, no, no, no. And I did, in my dreams. Now I may not know anymore the word for chair, but I can sit happily in one for hours, gazing out a random window, wool gathering, or watching people as they come off the plane, vaguely dissociated, time obsessed, desperate for the next text or call, confirming their pickup spot. I was like that once, on the move, a hunter, one of the pack. These days, the young ones in white coats and sweats nod, share glances they think I don't see, ask me if I still practice. I tell them, yes, I still practice, that I am, in fact, at the height of my powers. Hmm. You know, the idea of, or the term, the unreliable narrator. If you look up unreliable narrator in the dictionary, you'd see me or the narrator of this poem. It's called It Pains Me to Say It. And so I have not yet thanked you for the generous cache of books that appeared in my mailbox just after you left, including a copy of your new book. Big congrats, by the way. To be totally transparent, I should say that I'm not quite sure exactly when you left, what with finalizing my divorce and all the rigmarole those last few days. Actually, since we're in a truth-telling mode, I should tell you that was the week I went to Puerto Vallarta without a word to anyone, radio silence. Took a condo a block from the beach and hibernated, escaped from the world completely. Well, truth be told, not completely, since that was the week I met Javier, who's fabulous, whom you'll meet very soon. So let me say, in all honesty, when I found the books you sent, I hadn't checked the mail in weeks. No, several months to be exact. Not since I received that nasty 3-day notice to quit, which quite frankly freaked me out completely. I mean, one all-night party, the bed collapses, and suddenly, whoa, I'm a bad tenant. Lucky for me, your apartment was available. My dear, I hate to ask it. It pains me to say it, but a cable bill arrived, addressed to me. Can you say salt in the wound? I mean, can I count on you to pay it? What with your book all published and you and the chips? You are a dear. I don't say it nearly enough. Uh, um, I have one more poem I want to read. And it comes from the experience of having moved to Mexico a couple of years ago now with my partner, and um, exploring ideas of what it means to be in the everyday, what it means to kind of slow down and observe differently, and even create a space for the surreal kind of fantasy dreams that poets like to dream and then put on paper if they can and convey to others. Um, with a nod to Cesar Vallejo, this is the last poem in my book, Danger Face, which is coming out from Wayfarer Books, which in April of 2025. And Wayfarer Books is this wonderful press that I'm having this great relationship with, and I urge you all to check them out. Every communication clear, everything filled with encouragement, patience, and kindness. Wayfarer Books, just great. Anyway, this is called 12 O'Clock Shadow. Write this. I will die in Mexico, waiting in line for a cafe de olla just before noon on a weekday morning, face down on a crowded sidewalk, clipping my head on an ancient curb. An ordinary day, unlike any day we've seen before. A cup of sky turned upside down, settling around us, a pall of bluest blue. A cross between turquoise and cobalt, this blue. Talavera blue, the blue you see all over town, a not accidental, consequential shade of blue. Write this. It was yesterday I landed at Leon. And I wonder, in this netherworld, did I travel any distance or merely fly in circles? My trip a non-necessity, dissolving in the rain. It was my father, or the ghost of my father, waiting at the jetway, his face gray and oval, a dove's egg, bland and smooth, with a mouth that moved but did not speak, until he spat at my feet a spate of blue feathers. Blue, the blue of robin's eggs. Only then did I awaken. Write this. Why must I be the one to die? It's a Monday morning, hours past dawn. My cup is full. A caffeinated brew of cinnamon, sweet bark, cherry seed, adorned with sprigs of lavender. C.W. Emerson did not die today. There he goes, old Doc himself, limping down Calle Libertad. We expected commotion, an ambulance or two. But there's only this crystalline sky and this sun. Mijo, what a day. Mothers walking children home from nursery school at noon. The sky so blue you can taste it almost. A day so sublime it's cliche. And a shame not to be at the Hardin, in the square, on the road to Damascus or Mandalay or Dolores Hidalgo, where church bells are ringing to celebrate Monday, an everyday, inconsequential 12 o'clock noon. And I am alive to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CW. That was incredible. What wild and wonderful stories. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, we owe a round of applause to both of our wonderful readers tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We so appreciate your work and your beautiful words. I'm saving the chat so everybody will get to see the comments, and our recording will be up on YouTube. So for those of us who missed the reading, we'll get to see it again and savor the words. Right now it's time for our open mic, and it's one poem, one page. So these are fairly short poems that you're going to be reading. And if you'd like to raise your hand, it's in the reactions. There are some people know what to do already. And I will go around and choose the next person who's in line. You're all lined up. And I hope everybody gets a chance to read. I know we've got some fabulous poets here. And if you, hi, Laura, it's nice to see you. Laura's one of our readers. If you don't know how to use the hand, you can just raise your own hand after the Stan, I see your hand, and Glenna, I see your hand. Hi, Kathy. Oh, it's so nice to see you, Kathy. As soon as the people who've used the mechanical hand are done reading, I will go ahead and select the people who just use their actual human hand. Dan Liebertson, would you like to read first? Unmute yourself when you read and mute yourself again after
Okay,
you.
yes, I would surely like to read. And the poem I'm going to read is one of a series of 52 that will hopefully go into a book before too much longer that I'll be trying to publish in one way or another. And the book is entirely about cats. And I'm, by the way, looking for an illustrator who's affordable to do some color drawings or paintings of cats to go with it. Anyway, this particular poem is called Midnight. Black as her name, Persian Midnight mainly was mother's cat, perhaps because Middy too birthed babies, and because mothering her was simple, not fraught, as was finding a way to care for a raging teenager son and save a schizophrenic daughter whose fits of screaming and abuse defied therapy and steadily got worse. When Mitty was ready to give birth, she disappeared for days and had us frantic, searching fruitlessly until a faint mewing from the attic revealed her and a litter of 4 tucked back under eaves and loose insulation. In high summer heat, that oven-like pocket could have killed them all had I not splayed on my belly to reach and hook them out, to be installed in a cardboard box in the first floor half bath, coolest part of the house. All but 1 kitten lived to be donated to small children, and we fixed Mitty to forestall another trauma. If I were a kitten, I recall thinking, I would want to be hers. So devoted a mother was she, suckling them, licking them clean, caressing one with soft paw, distraught like any human mom after my damaged sister, angry because the kitten she petted would not purr for her, shouted, "Bad kitty," and hit it with her fist. It bled from the mouth and died. But 2 years later, that same sister made amends by saving our dog, struck quadriplegic by a car and written off by the rest of us, nursing him for weeks as he lay and whined in his own waste, until he wobbled to his feet and lived to chase cars again. The ghost kitten's forgiveness flowed that wide and deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Scott Delgarno, would you like to read?
Surely. This is a poem about a woman ruler. Imagine that. It's called Patina Regina, and it has an epigraph. I've spent all my life in little rooms, Queen Elizabeth I. You're a queen bee trapped in a royal web of dim-lit rooms where you're easily managed by men you can't trust nor dare to mistrust. You are golden, a fish in a crystal bowl. They court you, these courtiers, but you want to recede into a black corner, maybe disappear. Your ladies touch up the kabuki mask that is your face, made of vinegar and white lead, a half-inch and growing. What is hidden is beautiful, they say. What is remote, most affecting. You've become two-dimensional, godlike, ghoulish, a geisha, virgin as driven snow, as riven as the channel that protects you. You're a myth behind a mat beneath a crown. At Christmas, you frown, overhearing a steward's child quizzing her mother. Have they whitened Majesty's face, she asks, or yellowed her teeth? Thank you.
I wish we would have a queen instead of what we got. Oh, Myrna, it is your turn to read.
Okay, Dale, thank you so much. I seem to be fond of sonnets these days. Beauty is not everything, after Edna St. Vincent Millay. Beauty is not everything. It cannot rescue a child beneath concrete rubble after an earthquake strikes her ancient city. Nor can it cool a shut-in living in a windowless fifth-floor walk-up, or feed him when Meals on Wheels loses his address. Beauty cannot stop fires from singeing fleeing fawns, nor save acres of wheat when from frenzied pestilence. And yet, picture yourself and a friend in an art gallery, standing before a black and white, earthquake-trapped child, cement-dusted arm reaching for a rescuer's hand. See yourself studying a sepia, bone-thin, unshaven old man, sitting open-legged on a stool, sweat-soaked shirt stained with loneliness. At brunch, will you disagree about the virtues of film versus digital? Who will be the first to raise a toast to beauty and the pathos a camera can capture? Who will later toss in the trash a letter from Save the Children? Who will send a check? Thank you.
That's so true. Susie Harris, would you like to read?
Thank you, Dale. Yes, I would. This is a poem I started at Poets at the Coast. Both Myrna and Michelle were there, and the prompt was using a ridiculous international news article. I decided I needed to do something that was kind of funny today because everything else I have to share is sort of despairing. So this is actually based on a true thing, but it's also ridiculous. Australian man shoots raccoon from tree in Portland backyard. It was a black walnut tree, full in summer canopy. I can't remember how we knew, but in our yard we saw it fall, fur and claws, tail and all, hurled to the ground as gunshot sound rang like church bells. Our neighbors on the other side were sunbathing at the time and furiously ran inside. Tom was left to cart the carcass off to settle the neighbors who had called the cops and calm the shooter. It was a misunderstanding, after all, who moved away shortly after, as did the family of raccoons.
Oh, I don't know how funny that was for the raccoon.
I'm not a fan of raccoons. It was fun.
I can tell. Sue, would you like to read?
Sure. Considering that I've been bombarded with high wind warnings for the last 2 days, I will read this one from my book, Dining Al Fresco with My Dog. Thank you, Lana. It's called It Blows Like That. It blows like an explosion that doesn't quit. Branches flying, for sale signs shredding, cats landing in unfamiliar yards. It blows like an old guy who has just found out he has cancer. So now he's throwing out his fishing poles, not caring where they land or if they break. It blows like one big fuck it all, like air drunk off its ass, stumbling around, knocking over drinks. It blows like a scream. It blows like God is pissed, like he might not stop until every sparrow, frog, and fallen leaf is swept into space, leaving a spinning ball of naked clay moving gingerly around the sun. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. Peter, would you like to read?
Yes, I'd be happy to read. Great to see so many of you again. We're in Orlando, Florida, and just wonderful, wonderful work from both of our feature poets. So this, in Orlando, this is actually the farthest I've lived from the beach, about an hour. And this poem is called Beach Glass. After summer crowds fade, we who live near the beach comb sand, search not just for spare change, silver jewelry, but also pieces, even shards of glass we transform into ornaments and curios. Serious collectors covet red, rarest color, hope of finding some fueling each expedition through dunes. Hospice is where you go when hope is gone. Denial, anger, understanding, even acceptance and peace can live there, but not hope. When my mother was dying in one of those places old people are warehoused, a stream of friends and family flowed through her room to share stories, testimonials, precious time for togetherness. A son and daughter keeping lonely vigil across the hall came to us with a request that somehow did not seem odd in those rooms, hovered between life and death. When it's your mother's time to go, do you think her soul could linger long enough to guide our mothers to the other side? She's so scared. It would be a comfort. Even here, Mom's life, our family's love still shone. After everyone was gone, I whispered in Mom's ear, asked her to do that favor for another mother and all those in hospice here who feared. I know you're not scared, Mom, but I am, I said. When you're in heaven, let me find red glass next winter when I walk the beach. Mom passed 2 days later, peacefully, I hoped. 6 months passed. I found a place on the beach to plant my blanket on dunes not far from the surf, dug aimlessly among sand until hands grasped hard, smooth surface, lifted a piece of red glass. Now I know.
I'm glad you got your wish.
Thank you. Great to share it with all of you.
Michelle, would you like to read?
Thank you. Such beautiful poems tonight. This poem is called Thanksgiving, and I thought of it with Lana's comment about compassion and self-compassion. Thanksgiving. 2 pumpkin, 2 pecan, one with figs, the other drenched in bourbon. I start the brine on Tuesday, roll out the pie crusts Wednesday morning. Over 4 decades with the same solid rolling pin with the initials of the old boyfriend burned into the handle. He carved it out of olive wood, wrapped it in wax paper. I remember the slow unwrapping, then seeing the ring tied with string around the handle, his hopeful half smile. How I slowly pushed it back across the table. Walking home to my apartment, the crunch of frost under our boots, the sound of everything breaking. He cradled the rolling pin against his chest, and when we reached my door, laid it gingerly into my arms like it might wake. In 3 days, I was with his roommate because I was 20, and the small town gossip was a fire that I countered with more fire. It's a miracle anyone becomes a decent human. What is forgiveness but another word for mercy? My crusts are all butter. My hands have smoothed the groove from the burn in the wood. Sometimes I also make apple, enough for everyone to take some home.
Oh my God.
I hope you at least baked him a pie. Oh, the poor guy. You're lucky he didn't whack you with that rolling pin. Okay, Sandy, would you like to read? You're going to need to unmute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dale, and good to see so many friends and to hear so many amazing poems tonight. Well, I've been traveling around this year, busking my second book, The Glass Studio, and now I'm kind of deeply halfway into the new book. And I'm going to read, I think, 2 new poems from that collection, which kind of the central figure of it's going to be a crown of sonnets. So I've got these 2 linked sonnets to share tonight. My father survived a very famous circus fire in Hartford, Connecticut in July of 1944, and that's largely where this takes place, although it's kind of timeless. The Wire Walker. A glass heart works most of the body's time travel into a perfect frenzy. I was there on the high wire with both our bodies twining their lines into each other. I was there willing myself to trust fall further each night without a net, a death-defiant act rivaling the sheets. Each night I was there, I became more a flight risk and reliable, like night meeting every morning, square on, the sun rising with its inscrutable fingerprints dismissed onto our bodies. I want her surprise to surround me with its netless kisses, endless gifts wrapped in glass paper. See how each perilous step toward the other breaks free. The ringmaster, how each perilous step toward the other breaks free from harm and the barbed wire fence. One day you are 5 and the cows come home to fake a pasture in your backyard. Another day, you ask her to stay, not like this pastoral. You ask her to stay like the ring stays on the finger forever, like the ringmaster orchestrates the entire circus from the center, bringing the other 2 rings along for the ride. Where once disaster, where once the fire burned through the canvas and everyone's skin on a July day, now she and I plant candles in our night garden, watch ourselves grow into the vast shadows their light casts with every gorgeous angle our bodies can master together. Here, I have no top hat, no tails. I am naked on the wire to my knees. I drop. Thanks so much, everybody.
Wow.
Thank you. Great imagery. Jolene, would you like to read?
Yes, I would. I'm going to read from my book that was published from Lana's Press this year. The poem that has the title in it, and it's because C.W. brought up the last epidemic we lived through. It's called I Lived Through One War. I've had my share of the I'm dying lament. I'll not go there with this new pandemic. I lived through one war, AIDS, worked and lived through death up close. People take risks. Bug chasers fucked to get HIV, that old story. Citizens throw corona parties to get sick, build immunity. They make decisions irrespective of rules or science. Meet with a friend, walk in a park, conscientious. I will shelter in place within reason, unafraid. My body strong despite a retrovirus I've learned to live with 30 years. No known reason why I survived. People criticize those who exercise free will, speak with judgment from fear, become vigilante citizens, fight with store clerks who request they wear a mask. In the Philippines, they shoot offenders of shelter in place. We must ask new questions, find unconventional answers, remember our history, listen to those who survived stigma and shame,
It's time for massive change before we proceed. Our planet, slow now, with clear skies. Thank you.
Thank you, Julene. Laura, so nice to see you.
There. Thanks. Yeah, well, really, it's a treat to have a reading that I can get to from Australia. So thank you for having it. And wonderful to hear CW and Lana. Just love them. And I'm going to read from the book that also came from Lana's press. Very grateful for. And that's called The Generosity of Birds. And I just let go of what page I was going to be on. Here it is. This is called called Waking in the Tropics After Dreaming of Snow. Through the window, she oak needles shiver under the shimmying weight of a wagtail. My eyelids are at half-mast, languor after a broken night's slumber. Fruit bats in the papaya. I feel chastised by the young magpie begging for grubs. My body melts into my chair, aware of the brush turkey in the banana tree, demolishing fruit. A caucus of crows dive and call from the tangle of mangroves. A python dangles. What lingers is the scent of snow. A North American forest, pine cones, blue jays, the dark velvet eyes of a doe. Wistful as the crested pigeons cooing on my deck, I'm missing my raucous laughs with you. Our nest under the quilts, the notes I could hit, your baritone lilt. How my tongue, like a fish, muscled its way along the shoals of your skin until, silent as a heron, you scoop me up and toss me deeper back into the gullet of my desires. Thanks.
Wonderful. Gullet of my desire. I don't think I'll forget that. Nancy, would you like to read?
There, I got it unmuted. Sorry I could not respond previously. This is called a haku. It's a head lei. People in Hawaii wear leis on the head as well as around your neck and shoulders. I'm going to be reading one poem from my newest book, which has just come out, Citizens, Voices and Faces from a Tectonic Landscape. Some of the voices that will be speaking their mind in this book are rocks that have their own spirit. And the illustrations in this book are the photography of my husband, Jacques. So this is a picture of some rocks. And the poem I'm going to read is called Seda, Spirit Stone. That's the Seda is the Sami reindeer people, of which I am one, word for stone that has spirits and knows what it wants. I actually found a spirit stone at our place in Hood River. It was buried under the landscaping, and so I lifted it out and moved it to where it had a nice view of Mount Hood. And this is how it's commenting on that. Such amazing good fortune at this point in my life to be found by someone who appreciates my potential. I was born of fire from the depths, and hurled unceremoniously into the world. They can tell how many years ago by my inborn atomic clock. Because I am diminutive, as recent seasons passed, I became buried farther and farther under a lilac bush. And while I enjoyed the spring color and the fragrance, I felt ignored. I knew upon feeling that first tug that things were about to change, that at the other end of those hands was the end of abandonment and the melding of spirit with spirit, along with practicality, a cautious dragging along by someone whose back knows better than to just lift and haul, but whose spirit has now lifted mine out into the open. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Norma, would you like to read?
Yes. There we go. This is Old Woman's Spectrums. Trump wins, it says. She sees double. A bright spectrum of sunlight explodes its way through a pretty glass weight on the windowsill. Each color of the spectrum fractures itself into complex multi-cross shapes. Red shatters orange. Yellow mangles. Orange, yellow, mangle. Wait a minute. Orange mangles yellow. Yellow invades green. Green interrupts blue. Aqua jumps out while purple slides in. Then there's light. All over light. Stunned. Unhinged. Knickers twisted. Boundless misunderstanding. Her consciousness temporarily buried in deep gray mush. 12-hour silence required until sleep, when she wakes up with either a truth or her conspiracy theory. She knows the type. She knows the truth. He bought his votes. Those who invested in him bought America, the cheapest country available, his best deal so far. Suddenly, America is a population of disposable citizens. America has run head over heels into the tragedy of democracy. Consumerism, not enough of everything to go around because everything is just too much. America's women given all there is from husbands who have been trained to keep wives and children happy at all costs. Women trying to be happy without autonomy and equality, and children whose wisdom is overlooked. What now, old woman asks? Guns, bombs, ashes, starvation for all? Kamala suggested lifting people up. Old woman likes the idea. Poets do it all the time. Dancers do it. Dancing, singing, touching, holding hands, listening, seeing, hugging strangers. Old woman can be sad and get down. Then spectrums visit her apartment when the sun shines, always lifting her up.
Thank you, Norma. Stan, would you like to read?
So I see that poets need other poets to find things that haven't been said. And that's what I derive from these sessions. A long time ago, Brendan Behan wrote a poem that quickly became a folk song and was widely recorded, and I borrowed the title, The Patriot's Game. Brendan Behan showed us that patriotism is built with guns, with enemies as fodder and scapegoats in the drama. Slogan speeches agitating the crowds, specializing in special interests and hidden agendas, pulling the strings behind the star-spangled curtain. Youth enshrined in posters, badges, flags, and graves. Patriotism is the booby prize, contrived by old men, emboldened by their power, their pride, their bribes, and publicity. Caught up in an exhausting swirl of lies and illogic.
Thank you, Stan. Glenna, would you like to read?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Childhood paperwork, childhood patchwork. Some things from childhood follow us into our later life. Some don't. The patchwork quilt that covered my brother and I when we were small covers me now. It is frayed in spots. When I was 12 and knowing the risk, I stealthily tried on my mother's silk organza and lace wedding dress she kept in a box in her cedar chest. Now I keep it in the same box in my cedar chest. The tiny plaid-clad Scottish doll that my namesake gave me one Christmas mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind her tiny red leather shoes with silver buckles. I wonder. The memory of a wood burning stove in the center of our living room stays with me. We gathered around it on Sunday nights, coming home from church to a cold house and an evening snack of tea, toast, and canned peaches. It's been many years since I've heard "Don't forget I love you," followed by a kiss whenever I said goodbye to someone in my family. And what happened to my mother's recipes for divinity and angel food cake?
Thank you, Glenna.
I enjoyed the reading tonight, and I enjoyed reading for you.
Thank you so much. Shirley, you didn't have your hand up, but would you like to read? No? Kathy, I would love to hear you read. Do you have a poem for us?
Not at my fingertips, but thank you for asking next time.
And next time you have to come again. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, I guess I'm the last reader, unless anyone just wave me down and you can read instead of me. I'd love it. I'll read my poem. And it's not about the election. I also write about my grandchildren. So this is one of those. Nocturne for Colleen. I mean to tell you, even though the landscape has turned barren and bleak, hills darkened to shale, fields icy and rutted, that the sharp-fanged moon will soon open its sleepy jaws. November is but a whisper in this moment of stealth. There is a dance coming on, a cakewalk of festivities. Snow geese are flocking, their arrows pointing south. I call you, pink-cheeked, golden tousled and glittering. I call you fairy sprite, to blow your harmonica and sing wild winter songs. Tuck your rag dolls in bed, put on your finery, your scarf, your mittens, your coal black boots. Bring your sled and meet me at the top of the hill. Well, everybody unmute yourselves and let's give our two readers a rousing applause. Yay. Thank you so much. You're so wonderful. What an inspiration.
Fabulous.
Thank you to all the open mic readers and you, Dale.
Incredible.
And thank you to the audience. What a great night of poetry. Wow. Just
Thank you.
fabulous.
Thank you, Lana. You were fantastic.
Lana, did you say that you were going to have a group? Was it or something coming up that you were?
I'm going to be running a reading series. A reading series where actually Sandy is one of our readers and Deanna O'Reilly, three poet and myself. This is going to be a proof of concept reading series. It will happen next month on December 11th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. And I'll share the information with Dale to share.
Oh, good.
But it's going to be the three of us in conversation about how our poetry is connected and how we're all connected by poetry.
That'd be great. Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I posted in the chat actually in January, I believe it's January 12th. I don't have my 2025 calendar accessible.
I think Thomas and I wrote down the wrong.
I think you did. Yeah, I think it's the 12th. But Julene and Lana and Thomas A. Thomas and Ansley Clark, all Moon Path Pressers, are going to be our featured readers on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, which is a international, intergenerational, intersectional reading series I've been holding on Sundays since March of 2020. So
Oh, wow.
you'll see that on Facebook as well.
Thank you.
And you're all welcome to join the group as if you're not members. I know a number of you in this room are members, and thank you. And yeah.
And one more question, Dale, did you say that that somehow we'll be able to read through the chats?
Yes, I'll publish the chat in an upcoming email. So everybody can read it. There have been a lot of accolades and hearts and thank you everybody for participating.
Thanks, Dale.
Great.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Dale, for doing it.
We'll see you soon.
Bye, Chris.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. What a beautiful reading.
Looking
Hi,
forward to
everybody.
more readings, hearing you all again.
CW, it was so good to hear your work, and I want to read more of your writing.
I second that.
Absolutely. I loved it.
Great. Thank you, everyone. This was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming all the way from Mexico.
Oh, it was a long trip, but worth it.
Yes. And I hope your wind has died down, Lana.
Yes.
It's died down here a bit. It's not
Yeah, I
raining
think it
against
may
the
have.
windows.
I think it may have. I think we made it. I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
the
that was a little
flashing in the
unnerving.
background.
I don't like it when it hits the windows because I think they're gonna break.
Yeah.
Don't break.
Bye.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
Shirley.
Good night,
Nice to
everyone.
see you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thanks, Dale, for keeping me on your mailing list.
Thank you, Laura. I love your poetry.
Me
Thank you.